Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to the Owls podcast. This week we are here with some of the directors and an actress from Persona going on in the BT in 6th week. So would you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Rachel, I'm the producer of Persona.
Hi, I'm Lucas and I'm the director.
Hi, I'm Agnes and I'm playing Alma.
So for those of you who don't know, Persona is an existing film. So what would you guys say to somebody who has never heard of Persona? How would you explain the original film?
Well, to give a sort of short synopsis.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it starts with the actress Elizabeth Vogler, who's a famous actress. She's on stage and she falls silent. She seems to have seen through all of the roles she's playing on stage and then consequently seen through the roles that she plays in her life, that sort of thing. And also in herself, she can't really discern where the role begins and where herself begins. So then it goes from there and it starts in a psychotherapeutic hospital in Stockholm, and then they go to Faro, which is a remote island, for her to recover with Alma, who's sitting right here. And she's completely silent, Elizabeth, but Alma speaks, and Alma starts to speak openly to Elizabeth. But then at first it seems all like a sort of friendly conversation, but then it becomes more sinister and Elizabeth's intentions become potentially malignant, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's definitely a very dark, very complex kind of plot with a lot of different sort of difficult themes in it. So what made you want to adapt that into a play, and what was that process like?
Yeah, so I first started thinking about adapting it in the summer when I watched it for the second time, I think. And I was thinking about putting something on in theatre in Oxford, and I thought that as a film it's very localized. Like Bergman called it a chamber piece, a chamber film, referring to the fact that it's in a very small space, and what he was really playing with were the different tonalities of characters, like the instruments in a chamber quartet or something. So in fact there's 4 characters in this, and I think it's modelled on that, as well as this Strindberg play, which is very similar. But yeah, so it's very localized, and that also then adapts well to the space we're using, the BT, because it's so small. So as a film, it's particularly open to be adapted. So that's what, and also it's just such an amazing film. It's sort of like a puzzle in a way, but it's impossible to solve. Like, you can give one interpretation which is valid, and then someone writing about it said, but the exact opposite interpretation will also be true. And I think that's often the case with things which are really sort of like living, like they're not, you can't pin them down, and that's what it's like. So it's all these boundaries, which is what it's kind of partly about, which blur and change. You place it here or there or whatever, and yeah, every time you place it, it changes, sort of thing.
It's very interesting. That's kind of a very compelling idea of a shifting script. Is that sort of something that drew you to the project? Were you familiar with Persona the film, Agnes, before you auditioned, or what did it feel like for you coming into something that, you know, arguably had a lot of existing baggage as a project already, in a completely different format?
Yeah, so I had watched it before. I'm part Swedish, so I've been educated on the film and attempted to understand what they were saying in Swedish, but failed at that. But yeah, no, I was really excited about it because I think it's just a really amazing film. I love the actual filming of it, how Bergman used close-ups and things like that, and that was really interesting when I was thinking about auditioning, how that would translate to the stage and how that would translate into, you know, these really intimate moments with characters, and how you guys were gonna portray that on stage, which you've done a very good job at.
Yeah, but those close-ups, as you say, like one of the best bits about the Bergman film is there are these amazing close-ups, and with the lighting as well, which is just incredible and like really subtle. It's just really powerful at communicating these very subtle changes in emotions. So that's obviously a hard thing to bring onto the
translate,
stage.
yeah.
But as I said, we're doing it in a very small space. We're also doing it in the round, sort of not quite in the round, 3 sides.
Traverse.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I think.
Yeah, open stage.
Okay.
So the idea being to have everyone really close to the expressions, because obviously when one of the main actresses is completely silent, she's communicating purely gesturally throughout the whole play. So you have to be able to see someone's face very clearly.
That's a very interesting idea. So has in the rehearsal room, do you think the film has influenced you, like you've been talking about, in kind of the ways that you're trying to create intimate moments? Are you more trying to kind of separate it as a different entity on stage, or bring some of the kind of directorial techniques that are seen in the film to your adaptation?
Obviously, it's hugely influenced by the film. We've adapted the film to the stage, and Bergman's such a great director that it's sort of really almost perfectly done in the film. But then the fact of its adaptation to the theatre means that there's certain things which can't be communicated, and thus there's certain sort of opportunities to change things, to have a different approach in different moments. So I was thinking about those a lot when adapting the script, and then I haven't watched the film since like December or something, because we want to sort of really think about it as we're rehearsing. But occasionally we look at a clip and we're stuck.
when we don't know how to act a certain part of it, we're like, oh, what does Bibi Anderson
do? Convenient. So Rachel, for you as well, when you're going through the casting process and look casting people for roles that do have these great performances already attached, did that impact what you were looking for in actors, or were you trying to look for somebody who could bring something different to the role?
We definitely weren't looking for somebody who was going to mirror the actresses in Persona. We were looking for somebody who was reactive and able to bring their own thoughts and their own sort of conceptions of the characters to the role, and we felt that Agnes brought that in spades. We thought the other actors as well were definitely just so dynamic and exciting that we sort of had to cast them in the film. There
was a lot of really great people auditioning.
I just said in the film, I meant in the play. I promise I do know the difference.
It is pretty rare, I feel, to find an adaptation of a previous work in the Oxford drama scene. Are you guys noticing that? How does it feel to be kind of writing, directing, and also with that, as opposed to kind of maybe the freedom of a completely new play?
One thing that I think is really interesting about Persona is that when you go back and watch it, it's kind of hard to believe that it was written when it was written. It's sort of dealing with stuff that we're thinking about now, so kind of ecological engagement, which we think of something as coming with the climate crisis. That's something that Bergman is thinking about in 1966. And he's thinking about motherhood and maternity and conception and fertility, which are things which really have definitely been on people's minds very recently. So even though it isn't an adaptation of something from the 20th century, it feels as contemporary and exciting as something written now. So like you say, it is definitely kind of unusual to have a film adaptation, but we feel that it can hold its own next to modern writing.
Yeah. I was saying another really interesting theme in it that holds up is that the central theme is really about identity and how people form their identities in relation to society and within themselves. And that's really the sort of journey which Elizabeth's going on. And she sort of recognises the falsity and the identity she had originally, and then works through this process of sort of trying to respond personally to that and see to know what she is, sort of thing. And that's like her journey. Also then about idea of adapting a film. Like films, people make a film and then it's set in concrete and it's never put on again. Whereas a play is written and performed thousands of times in thousands of different variations. So I don't see why a film should be constrained in that way necessarily. I think there's it's really a great thing about theatre is that it's constantly just like being repeated in different ways.
That's a really fascinating point. And I liked your point about identity too, and these themes in this show that are in this piece of work that are very, very pervasive. But alongside those sort of themes of general humanity, there's a lot of really dark material in here, and a lot of stuff that's really tough to handle. Do you want to speak a little bit about how you guys are handling that, how you're planning to put that on stage and what that's going to look like? I mean, not to spoil too much, so we'll stick to just dark themes, but yeah. Yeah,
so, I mean, from the beginning of the process with it, we recognize the importance of like making people aware of that. Because as you say, there's definitely things which are very intense. And so in the auditions and in, like we always told people and like asked whether they're comfortable with it. And then the same thing goes on with the actual performance. I mean, we'll list things that people might find difficult because we're trying not to shy away from the difficulties in that space, and the fact it's in such a small space emphasizes that. And we're also playing with the audience being sort of complicit in the events on stage, being sort of almost part of in the same room and part of the conversation. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's one scene where that's particularly sort of manipulated.
Yeah.
So you'll have to come see the show to find out a little bit more. But Agnes, for you, what's that been like in rehearsals? What has this rehearsal process been like, kind of in general, especially as someone who, I think your scene partner for a lot of the time is completely silent. So what is that like for you as an actress?
I would love to know that too.
Yeah.
That was interesting, because first of all, I auditioned for Elizabeth. Oh, it's amazing, I can do a play and I won't have to learn any lines, which hasn't been the case. No, it's been really fun. It's been very busy, but I think it's good because Lucas always goes through the script with us before the scene starts, so we always get an idea of kind of like intention and the kind of tone that we want to be conveying with certain lines and certain areas of the script. And I think that's really useful because obviously if there's no one that I'm vocally responding to, then it's great to kind of have that intention laid out before you start doing the scene. But also Ella, who's playing Elizabeth, has literally the most I don't know how she gets so much expression in her face. She has such wide eyes, it terrifies me on stage. But it's almost like someone is talking to you because she does a lot of expressing that is done very powerfully.
This is all very exciting. I mean, if people aren't listening and completely convinced to come to the show, I don't know what they're listening to. But before we let you guys go, something like this is very daunting, I think. The idea of adaptation, of new writing, of directing something, of acting in a piece is complex. So all of you guys are doing some pretty impressive things. Do you have any advice on kind of participating in the ALD system, especially new writing and directing? Those are kind of very daunting exercises. Do you have anything you want to say?
I definitely felt daunted before getting involved in Oxford Drama, but I think the thing which made me realise I could do it was by talking to other people. So shout out to Freya Hutchins, who produced the effect. She spoke to me and she gave me some really great advice about just feeling able to take part, because sometimes you look at ALDs and you think that's something that other people do, and actually it's not something that other people do, it's something that you can do as well. And then I met Lucas at an Oxford University Filmmaking Foundation event, and he said he wanted to direct, and I said I'll give it a shot at producing. So it was just about sort of having somebody push you to have the confidence to know that you can also take part.
Yeah, and I felt totally pushed by you, like it's a two-way dynamic. It's so great to work with someone.
Yeah, the next day I was like, what's the plan, Lucas?
No, it's so good. It's because I echo the thing that Rachel said about, I found from the outside, when I hadn't done any Oxford drama before, the whole drama scene sort of quite confusing. I didn't know quite where to sort of start. I tried to AD on a few things last year, but I didn't get the AD part. So I was like, where do you go from here? So then, what I would say is just that if you want to do it, just do it, and then there's a really good infrastructure to, once you have a project going, then and it's
I hadn't auditioned for anything before in Oxford, and hadn't done any acting in quite a while.
That's surprising.
But
you're like our shining star.
Well, the last thing I'd ever done was Rent, which is quite
a bit of a mood change.
I've been like singing on stage. So yeah, this was quite different, and I hadn't really done any kind of like big acting parts in really serious plays. So that was more of a I'll just give it a go and see what happens. If I don't get it, I've never tried anything like this, so it's fine. And then I got it, and I was like, really? But it's fun.
All right, so general consensus is just get out there and do it, I think, from that advice. Thank you guys so much. This has been so fascinating, and definitely go see this show. It sounds incredibly fascinating, and especially as an audience member, it seems like some of those lines are going to be a little bit blurred, which sounds like a really fun show to go see. So thank you guys so much for talking to us. Thank you for listening to the Ouds podcast, hosted by Gillian Conco. Our editors are Hannah Gallardo-Parsons and Sheila Atuwona. The podcast is produced by Charlotte Baxendale, Noah Wild, and Lizzie Carr. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do get in touch at oudspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Ouds Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe.